Reddit Martian back with another tip-top video for you. r/AskReddit. Professors and university employees of Reddit. What behind-the-scenes campus drama went on that students never knew about. In our chemistry department a few years back, a grad student who was failing started poisoning another graduate student they worked with closely by putting carcinogens in their foods and drinks. Colorless, odorless, flavorless. Thanks to his chemistry knowledge, he was eventually caught, and I'm not sure what happened to him. Thrown out for sure. Perhaps arrested. Another year a grad student pushed another student down a flight of steps to try to kill them. Chemists are crazy. Mental note, be kind to chemists. 2 professors arrested for meth production. One for murdering his wife with lab supplies. Another stepped down quietly for embezzlement. And that's how we replaced half our chemistry department in a year. I'm noticing a trend between chemistry and murder in this post. In the English department, one of the professors got arrested for domestic violence, divorced his wife, then got another English professor pregnant and eventually married her, and they all saw each other at department meetings. Super awkward. Edit to clarify, the husband and original wife were both professors. He had an affair with another English professor. Wife found out and there was a major fight. Cops were called. He was arrested for DV, but I believe the charges were dropped. He filed for divorce, moved in with the other professor, got her pregnant, and he and the ex were still fighting over child support and alimony when I left. I was the pregnant professor's tape, but I was definitely team original wife. One of our male English professors was being stalked by a female student, to the point he had to get a restraining order against her. The only reason my class knew was because she saw him in the hallway, entered our classroom and made a huge scene the first day of class, and security had to be called to make her leave. After that, the door was always locked for that class, and whoever was in the back row were scouters to let in late students. He also had to cancel class to go to court for the situation at least once. Prominent professor was sleeping with his students. Actually, he met his wife that way, and then had a huge issue with dating other students after getting married. Lawsuits were threatened. He resigned and moved 3,000. Edit: this was exaggerated by about 2,000 miles away very quickly. No news. No public info released. It was all just known through the grapevine of staff. Edit: it was in the Midwest. But it seems this happens at every school based on comments. No, I'm not going to say where. I think students would be surprised just how much drama happens. I am talking everything from major drama like lawsuits that universities have kept quiet, or EO complaints, to colleagues beaching at each other because one thought the other one rolled her eyes at the other one. I just went to a faculty meeting that was so tense and angry that I legitimately wanted to leave the room, and it was over a small wording difference of opinion in a policy that literally does not matter because it is departmental and not university wide, so it's going to get struck down anyway. Anyway, sometimes I am happy to go to class or meet with students in my office because that is the fun part of the job, and usually drama free until the last week of classes when everyone starts hustling for a higher grade. Night shift janitor made some really good moonshine. Some of the professors and grad students would leave cash in our top desk drawers when we left work, and the next day, a mason jar of handmade shine would be waiting there. He's since moved on from that department. It was good people. It would have been really weird if someone didn't know about that system, left some cash in their desk, showed up the next day, find out they've been robbed, but the moonshine fairy had left them a gift. I was a grad student in a major university. The department pretty much all loathed one another, and the professors had multiple alliances that were probably more complex than any game of Civ you'll play. At one point in time, a group of professors had aligned to overthrow the dean, and they were so successful in doing so that the dean wasn't fired. They were demoted to department secretary. It was brutal. I had a colleague who had people on their doc committee get into an argument and refused to sign off on anything they did. Not because of the quality of the work, but because the professors hated each other. I work at a college in the Midwest. A few years ago, our president very quickly resigned. Turns out his son was growing weed in their basement and was selling out of their house. Whether the president knew or not is still being debated, but he still resigned. Apparently there were quite a few rich kids who didn't study, go to class, contribute, or maintain a GPA above a 3.0 whose parents shockingly paid for them to get into those schools. Professors were purchasing tricked out laptops with their budgets shortly before leaving the university. The university in turn would let the professors purchase the hardware for a song because it was used. We're talking 2,000 to 3,000 euros machines being purchased 6 months down the line for 500 euros. Someone finally caught onto this scheme and now nobody can purchase the used hardware. My teacher was Syrian. He was practically always at university, always tired, always acting off, would sleep in his office, would forget to hand back assignments, would mix up basic things, cry randomly in the hallway. We later found out his family was being held hostage back home while he was teaching in Canada. I had an advanced calculus teacher who'd come into class stoned out of his mind. He'd write down equations on the board from a book, and about 15-20 minutes in, he'd invariably excuse himself and take a bathroom break. He'd then return, coked out of his mind, and proceed to solve all equations in less than 5 minutes and non-stop monologued about the topic for another 5, then dismissed the class and stormed out, invariably if you actually understood or not. Most students seemed physically stunned and dazed by the whole process. I don't know whether he was a freaking genius or a deranged drug fiend, but I studied in a big university at the time, and recently I heard he was made head teacher of the math department, so I don't know what to think. Sexual harassment. University and department recently had a big sexual harassment scandal. We, grad students, and faculty, all know who the one unnamed person is, but the university and department won't do anything about it. Dude's a full-on creeper and we do what we can to steer undergrads away from him without coming out and saying he has sexual harassed his students before. Our building is literally falling apart and regularly floods. The reason we won't move is actually because 2 or 3 old faculty members threw a fit over having to move their offices, which, as I said, flood and also have mold in them. One Spanish teacher attempted to take over the school from within, and when that failed he pretended to suffer from amnesia and tried to convince everyone his name was actually Kevin. There was also a big paintball fight, #Jangnesia. When I was going through my PhD program, a buddy of mine but his professor died on him. Young guy, in his 40s, got hit by a car. Boom. Not so fun fact, when a professor dies, their grants go away. If a grad student is on the verge of finishing, just writing up their results, they can sometimes hop to another lab and get by. My friend, however, was only in his 2nd year. He had to start over with a new project in a new lab. Essentially lost 2 years of his life on a project that yielded absolutely nothing. Whoa. Grad school. So uplifting. No chance of a weekend at Bernie's type deal. Modern problems require 1980s classic movie solutions. Our heads of department or course directors would purposely keep dragging students, the act of pulling a student through their studies, even though they'd fail most classes. They'd purposely grade the student just above a pass even though the content of work was astonishingly bad, because if they left or dropped out it'd look bad on the course's stats and dropout rate. Not to mention the university not getting the student loan money. From there, of course statistics would be ridiculously high for that particular degree, so they'd then sell this to prospective students and parents. This is currently still going on. Source: I'm a lecturer at a university and yes, it disgusts me. Edit: I'm a UK-based lecturer, not from the US. My professor for grad school had his lab raided by the FBI. This happened long before I joined. Apparently, one of his first or second class of grad students in the 80s/90s decided that they wanted to use lab resources to brew some meth. Very easy to do with the equipment we have. From what I am told, this student would stay late in lab after others had left to get this done. In Breaking Bad style, he fences his drugs to some distributor and thought that was the end of it. The purity of his drugs was enough that they were able to trace it back from the streets to him and the lab. A sting operation shut down the lab while the dust settled, and my professor was cleared of all wrongdoing, since none of this was under his direct control, and all campus resources were being misused by the student. State Intelligence Bureau told the professor that it was the largest and purest operation they had seen in the state at this time. Do you know what you are? That's right, you're a champ. Thanks for watching. Like and share if you enjoyed. Don't forget the bell. Subscribe for more videos. See you soon, Martians.